All right, we're rolling, and I have Sah D'Simone here at my Brooklyn apartment. We just had some matcha maple energy bites. We're drinking lemon water, and I'm so excited to have you here at Welcome Wired.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a joy to be here. Your beautiful space and such great vibe, and I feel so supported already. Thank you.
So when I was trying to remember when we met, and I think we just kept running into each other at different wellness and spiritual related places in New York City.
Yes.
And then when it really came together is when we co-hosted a panel at Maharose in Brooklyn with Ruby Warrington from the Numinous and with Allison Charles, the Rockstar Shaman. And that's when I was like, whoa, this guy, we gotta talk more.
Same.
So we're gonna talk about some really deep things, really cool things. We just had lunch the other week, and all these things came up that have to do with entrepreneurship and spirituality and finding your path and making it all happen in a big city and being an immigrant, you know, all the things came up. So I thought, who would be better guest than Sah for second episode of this show? So where I want to start is by reading out loud your Instagram bio.
Oh, okay.
So your Instagram bio says, motivational speaker, transformational coach and meditation teacher, helping people transform their lives. You are worth the effort. And one-on-one appointments, articles, videos, podcasts. So that sounds really cool. And I want to know what you really do in your day-to-day life.
Okay. So day-to-day life, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays, I see private clients. So I see a group of about 12 people, and we work one-on-one for an hour. The sessions are actually 50 minutes, but there's the extra little 10 minutes that we're sorting out the homework. My work is very much about rooted in setting goals and getting clients to really learn about their limiting beliefs, ways to meet their limiting beliefs, face that fear, face that shame, face that guilt, and apply courage and compassion and forgiveness to then go into the next level. And that's when we really set the homeworks. And the homeworks could be like, drink more water this week, sleep a little bit longer, be a little kinder to yourself. Notice how you're speaking to yourself as soon as you wake up, to let's meditate 10 more minutes today, to let's write a forgiveness letter. You name it, you know, or let's, you know, write a letter to your dad that you're never going to turn it in, but just for you and I to know that you're opening your heart to that space. A lot of the work, the one-on-one work, is for people that are ready to transform their lives, you know, because it requires discipline. So what I do usually before I sign on a client, I ask them for a 15-minute call to see if they're ready and if they have the discipline to do the work. Because when I was, I've had 3 major outbursts of depression in my life. 2 of them, I had suicidal thoughts that were very dense and very sticky. And I didn't go seek a doctor. My mom thought that, you know, I'd taken these supplements and it was interesting because in retrospect, looking back, she was already a holistic, visionary mama. But I didn't, when it was happening, I just thought that she wasn't fully, completely there. But to lead back to your question, I needed to have discipline. I needed to have a lot of discipline, and I needed to have accountability. So the work that I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is see this group of 12, sometimes 15, it varies. And these are supermodels, CEOs, real estate agents, actors. It really depends. All walks of life. The only requirement is that they're ready to transform their lives, because it takes the daily repetition of these simple acts for you to get these major insights.
So how do you know if someone's actually ready to take on the discipline and transform their lives? That's a big thing to take on. Exactly.
So that's why that phone call comes in. And I ask them in several ways, if you're ready, if you have the discipline, if this happened, how would you feel? If you were to really work with me one-on-one, would you be willing to let go of toxic friends and toxic people and stop watching shitty TV and stop listening to terrible music, and cut down your alcohol consumption and stop smoking cigarettes, and perhaps, you know, don't do drugs every weekend, you know, like all the things that when you live in a big city are sort of like the norm. You know, people drink every night, they party kind of hard every weekend, and they're making enough money to get by, but they're not living out their dreams. And a big part of the work is, are you willing to live the best life? Are you ready to live out your dreams? These are the ways that I ask to gauge if they're ready. They're like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, okay, honey, so you're not for me. As long as someone is ready to say, you know what, I want to live out my dreams. I've thought about this since I was, this age, but I actually lived out my mom's story. And I became a doctor because of my dad. And I moved to New York City because of this. And I pursued a career in finance because of that. Nothing has to do with their personal story, their personal message. So part of my work is to do the private one-on-one coaching, which is the transformational coaching. And then I teach meditation all around the city, and retreats all around the world. And I do a lot of stuff in the corporate space too, which is a fun, awesome, kind of funny space to be in, but it's amazing.
So do you have to give up the shitty TV and the drinking and the cookies and whatever to be transformed, or how can we, stay real in the world with all its things and reality, and also stay on this path if we're curious and just have a feeling that something more?
Well, there's one of two things. Like, the way I see it, when you're ready to make a massive shift, you have to make massive changes in your life. You can't do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and expect your whole world to change. You really do need to commit to certain things. And the commitment is to just like eat less sugar, eat less processed food, sleep more, have better friends, watch things that are inspiring, they're not making you scared or anxious, listen to music that lifts your mood, exercise, things that we all inherently and intuitively already know that we should be doing, but we just don't. So committing to these simple practices is what I ask. And then getting really clear about, like, out of the 21 meals that you have a week, right? Let's say you're someone who eats 3 meals a day, there's 21. The way we start with my clients is like, have maybe 6 or 3 of them that are your cheat meals, that you, for instance, for me, yesterday was a cheat day. So for lunch, I had a quinoa artichoke burger, but the burger was deep fried, and it was in this beautiful white bread with this cashew tartar sauce. I mean, I never have the bread, and I never eat deep fried food unless it's part of my cheat days. And then at night, I finished this epic meeting, and I was riding so high, and me and my sister went to have ice cream at this vegan place called Chloe in the Chelsea area. And there it is, 2 meals out of 21 meals that they didn't add to my awakening, but they didn't push me down because it's not the norm.
I think there's a fine balance between, committing to something that will make you ultimately feel better, and also not becoming obsessed with, okay, I only have 1 more cheat meal this week,
Sure.
For me, it's all about intuitively really listening, and the question I ask myself in terms of food is, a lot of times when I reach for something that's not so good for me is, do I actually want pizza or do I want a nap? And a lot of the times it's not even food that my body's craving, so it's that tuning into the intuition and, being guided less by, here's my schedule, what I should and should not be eating, and more of what's going to serve my body. And ultimately, I'm sure, you've noticed with clients, the more you work, the more tuned in you become with your intuition.
Completely.
That affects food as well.
Completely. And it's like this, the more, it just takes, just to clean up the slate a little bit. We've been poisoning our bodies and minds for me, it was 26 years of eating really poorly, of treating myself really poorly, of doing all the things that weren't supportive. And then I needed to take a couple years of very, very strict discipline to then come out and know that I can have these meals, that I could sit down and eat this or that whenever I wanted. But it takes us to change, first, to have a clean slate first, which is a lot of us, personally, I find with my clients, is people want the quick fix. They want the immediate, the spiritual bypass, the one meditation, the one juice, the one ceremony that will get me, it will clear me up of all my guilt, it will clear me up of all my bad eating habits. But we forget that we're eating for our whole body, that we're doing everything for a whole ecosystem, you know, and a lot of the times we're doing one thing for my taste buds, or for my sexual organ, or for, you know, this one thought to fulfill this one story. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes, what happens with the one-on-one clients and a lot of my students, they come in there and I'm fiery, you know, I let you have it straight up.
Oh,
and
no.
I think that's, I think that's really, there's a different teacher for every student. And I realized that for me personally, for me to change my suicidal thoughts and come out of the gate to redo and recreate myself in a total new way, I needed to start completely new. So I needed to make these changes. And once you become stable and balanced enough, then you actually have this inherent notion of, you know what, this will serve me right now, and this will do me well, and this will do me well. But until we get there, honey, there's a mission. There is, you know, we can't expect all the poison to leave our bodies and minds right away. We gotta work ourselves up to that point, and we need support. We need community. You know, we need friends that remind you of that you're magical, that you're a fundamental piece to this experience.
So, okay guys, when Sah talks about really, you know, poisoning your system and then really cleaning it up, he knows what he's talking about. He spent a few years in ashrams, going really deep into his own, you know, spiritual path. So tell us a little more about that. How did that all come about, and how are you finding your way into wild New York City now, you know, having spent a few years totally off the grid?
Wow, thank you so much for this question. So a few things happened, right? So when I was 23, I started this fashion magazine with a couple friends called Bullet. If you're in New York or you lived in a big city the last 5 years, you probably have heard of it. We had Cindy Crawford in our first cover with Mark Ruffalo talking about fracking. So we were doing these things that were different. Every issue had a spiritual theme. You know, we had the sin issue, the cosmic issue, the enlightenment issue. And when I was 26, I was bought out of that project by so many chains of events that happened. But my best friend decided to push me out of the project that we started together. So it was very painful. So there's a lot of betrayal, a lot of sadness, a lot of fears, a lot that came up from that, you know. And then I started something else with a little bit of the money that I had in Florida called Oracle Talk. And within 6 months, we reached millions of unique visitors. And then Oracle, the tech company, was like, I want that name because this blog that you have is coming up on Google more than we are. And throughout that process, we had someone from JP Morgan fly to Miami to meet us, to want to invest in us. It was the same person who invested on Refinery 29. So those two things were kind of like a reinforcement of like the power of creating something out of nothing.
Okay, so I want to pause here and go a little deeper into that.
Okay.
What state were you in when you started that blog, and what was it all about? And how did it all really materialize from an idea into a blog with millions of unique visitors? Because so many people listening, you know, they might have their own blog or company and wondering, how do I reach all these people? My message is so important. So how was that message born, and where did you feel the importance of sharing it, and sort of what were the tools of how you really brought it into life?
Great. So the blog was at a time where I was curious about meditation and plant-based lifestyle and sustainable design and tiny homes and exercise and yoga and spirituality in a holistic way. And I started to just be very curious about all and I realized that there's actually a lot of good politics going on. There's actually a lot of good things happening in the political sphere, but there wasn't a space that everyone was talking about all these things at once, because these are the things that I look forward to. So what we did is we created these Google tabs, and there was this thing called Net Vibes back then. I don't know if this still works, this still exists. But you put in your tags, the things you're curious about, and the names of these people. It's like a Google alert, same thing, but more specific, more curated. And they will give us the articles that were rated the best, given the amount of people who have seen it. So we would read those articles, and we would put our 200 to 300 words spin on it. But we were writing from this kind of like fashiony, snobby way, like, I think this works. and I'm gonna give it a try, but you know, I'm fine. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then throughout that process, a lot of the people from my old world of being the creative director of International Fashion Magazine, you know, were reading about it, and things started to, reblogs started happening, and we were very careful about SEO. And Upworthy, does that website still exist?
Oh, I remember that. I don't know if it still exists.
So Upworthy had a story that was revolutionary. We would do all the research of what is SEO, how do you become more search engine, how do you optimize everything you post. And there's all these keywords, and apparently the Huffington Post has a whole office where everything gets optimized based on Google searches. And Upworthy posted this story that was like how to create the most catchy title. So you have to write 25 titles, and after you write 25 titles, you narrow down to 3, and after you have 3, you narrow down to 1. But you have to write 25 titles. So we would write these 25 titles for every story.
Wow.
And that was what would catch people's eyes, you know, was the title, and then the subtitle. So the combination of the title, the subtitle, and the SEO behind it, and our little snarky, sassy way of talking about these topics, we were very curious about these things. So the curiosity fueled this passion, which then fulfilled this purpose that was needed there. There was so many people like us that wanted to read about good politics, that were supporting women's rights, that were supporting LGBTQ rights, that were supporting ways of dismantling oppressive narratives, you know, around the world. And we became really clear who our audience was, and we designed something that was beautiful, that wasn't like a spiritual website that had all these, like, you know, lilacs and greens and this and that. That was so like that. No, we were very like BuzzFeed. We designed a website around a place that people could come to feel like it was an authority that they could trust, you know. And we would write 8 stories a day.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, but the way that we would do it, we would have a couple of days a week that we write the stories, and then we'll position them. And we had these tools, I think it was called Hootsuite back then, that things get posted and all the social medias around there. And we have the newsletter, but it really has to do with the title. If you're writing a blog, if you're writing a blog and you want it to get out there, you have to make sure that you're writing from your heart, that you're not trying to be someone else, that you're really truthful to your curiosity. Because if you're curious about it, honey, I bet you there's thousands, if not millions of people who are also curious about that same thing you're curious about. But it takes that one person to be like, you know what, my curiosity matters, so I'm gonna fulfill that niche.
And that's the thing, you know, just the heart and the curiosity, and even being a good writer doesn't mean that you're gonna create a blog with millions of views.
No.
So it sounds like you did your own research and you really like figured out the SEO tricks and the titles.
Exactly.
But there's so many of these things, and when someone is starting a blog, or even just in a level of in a place where you want to bring it to the next level, like me with Breakfast Criminals right now, there's so many elements that I could invest my time and energy into up leveling. And I guess there is no formula. You know, for you it was titles, for someone else it may be brand partnerships, but in your experience, or is it just the titles, and you think if everyone just puts their energy into that, that's really going to pay back?
It is a multitude of things. And actually one huge thing that, thank you for reminding me this, is like when people are talking about yoga and sustainability and good politics and this and that and all these positive news, we wanted people to go onto the website, and as they scroll through, even if they didn't read anything, at least they felt a positive uplift, like there's good shit happening in the world. The images, we were choosing very specific, beautiful images. There was a high level of taste. And that is something that counts. You know, you have to bring people in with beauty. You know, you have to collect, you know, it's a way to allure you in, you know. And that's what I say to people now. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, but you use so much of your personal image on your Instagram. So it's like, honey, this is my way of alluring you in to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? That's really what's at.
Totally. It's like I say with Breakfast Criminals, food is my paint, you know, in my canvas, and I lure people into that world because food is the most universal language that everyone speaks. And then we talk about mindfulness and consciousness and self-love and all these other deeper things.
Exactly.
So, okay, back to you. You know, the website had millions of views, and then Oracle came in, the lawsuit, and so what happened next, and how did you end up in an ashram after that?
Exactly. So that's when I actually listened. And throughout this whole time, I was like battling this acute depression that was, you know, there would have these days that I would just be like, oh my God. It was paralyzing, you know. I didn't see I couldn't really see the sun behind the clouds. You know, it was just like the clouds were there. And then I watched the Krishna Das documentary of him, his pilgrimage in India. And I made this whole setup of all these gurus that I was going to travel in the south of India, and I was going to see them all, and da-da-da. And then my dad walks into the house, and he's like, I don't think you should do this south pilgrimage. I think you should go to the north, the Himalayas. I think you should study Tibetan Buddhism. I think you should go after His Holiness Dalai Lama. And I was like, oh.
Wait, how does your dad know?
Exactly. Up until today, it's a mystery how he knew. Up until today, because he's such a, like, you know, he's very logical about everything. He doesn't really talks about emotions. And on my way here, I was actually writing a post about, like, he's never said the word "I love you" to any of us. He's probably said it once when he was drunk. So I went to a monastery kind of a center in the north of the first encounter with in the north of India, in Dharamshala. And just the way my teacher looked at me, Venerable Joan Nissel, she's this Canadian nun who's been a nun, a Tibetan Buddhist nun, the Mahayana tradition, which is the one I studied for 27 years. She's fabulous. The way she looked at me, it was like forgiveness, unconditional love, kindness, potential. You know, there's all these ways that I didn't really talk to myself about, or even had someone reflect that to me. Oh, actually, there's a big moment that I forgot in the story. Skip to it. It was in between having been bought out of Bullet and starting Oracle Talk. In between that transitions when I went to Zurich, and I hung out with the first ever hippie, my friend Tiffany, who was my first ever hippie. First someone was talking about self-love and eating tofu and exercising, hugging trees and things. She was like, let's go to Berlin. I want you to meet some friends. And it was at this breakfast table in Berlin that these guys were talking about swimming in a sacred river, drinking entheogenic medicine, having gurus, fundraising for an NGO in Tibet, and self-love and world peace and healing and transformation and forgiveness. I was like, who the fuck are you guys? Like, I don't get any of this stuff. So I felt really awkward, and I walked out of this breakfast and went for a little walk around the block. I came back and things just started to change inside of me. It was like a major awakening moment. And then I came back to the States, started blogging about these things that I had found to be passionate about. And then fast forward to leaving for India on a one-way ticket. So I studied Tibetan Buddhism with this group.
Actually, pause here, please. So what's interesting to me, it's like the universe brought you to this table with those people to kind of give you a glimpse into that world, show you what's possible, and show you the type of conversation that you could be having that you weren't already having in your life. And, you know, for you, it so happened that you were physically transported there and you were in the presence of that consciousness. And for a lot of us, I feel like that breakfast event happens online. You know?
Huge.
If me growing up, I never felt like I belonged, or I had enough people to talk about subjects I was interested in, like personal growth and breath work and all these things. And I started finding things like that in books, and then at some point online, and that's where I really built my community. You know, I'm an immigrant, and until I really established what I'm interested in and started finding my community online, I really didn't know where to find it offline. So it's so cool that with social media, and we're going to get more into that in a few minutes, there's access to any kind of life and any kind of conversation, and we just can like pick and choose and be like, this is the kind of life I want to have, these are the conversations that are important for me to be having. And you know, all it takes is that one glimpse for the fire to be stoked and go off, and then boom, you're on your path.
Exactly.
So there you are on your path. start a blog, end up at the monastery.
Yeah. And then from the monastery, I was like, I really am drawn to bhakti yoga. So the chanting of the holy names, the repetition of it's a what they call them, it's like mantra meditation. And I went to Rishikesh, the yoga capital of the world. And it's where Maharishi, the Beatles guru, had his ashram, and where transcendental meditation was born. And I went to this ashram, and we were just chanting, and I just, from studying Buddhism and being told that everyone's experiencing suffering, that's just the nature of the human experience, but there is a way out, to then meditating with these real high-level practitioners in the Himalayas, where all these mystics and sages and saints have walked and lived and continue to gravitate towards this place, to then going to this ashram by the Ganga, by the Ganges River. Literally, we would finish class, in and out of class satsang, right? This exchange with these saintly people. We'll go into the river, the sacred river, and we'll come back into the ashram and chanting the river and the whole thing. So during this first go to India, I had already experienced massive transformation. So much so that when I came back to the States, I met my sister. I was staying at her place, and when I pulled up in the cab, she's like, wow, there's something so different about the way you feel and the way your eyes are, because I used to be very neurotic. I could never sit still. I had to always be going, seeking, clinging, attaching, and I would always have a cigarette on. I was always on, but it wasn't this on where I'm connected to myself. It was this on that I'm so disconnected to myself that I need to continue to do something to distract myself from the internal chaos that's happening.
Scrolling on Instagram or grabbing another coffee.
Exactly. And then I realized that there was nothing more important for me at this point in my life than discovering how to operate the mind, how to become friends with our most powerful tool, our mind, and how to live from our heart, and how to make my body energized. Because throughout this whole process of bullet and oracle, I had this nagging pain, physical pain in my body. It was almost someone had a hammer on. I would wake up with it, go to bed with it. And I would go to get x-rays, and I would go to doctors, and everyone's like, no, you're fine. You're just stressed out. I was like, dude, I know I have a tumor. I know I got something wrong with me. Just tell me so I can start treating it. It was completely a mind fuck. It was literally just the amount of stress, that accumulated narratives that I had reinforced throughout my life. And I was living out that prejudice. I was living out those fears. I was living out those, ways of being separate from myself and other people. And so much so that I was experiencing physical pain.
At what point did you realize you got enough answers and it's time for you to come back into the world?
One of my teachers in Nepal said, go, Sah, because you're going to come back in 20 years and you're going to become a monk. So go now, look your best, do your best, and go to the big city, go to the parties, and spread the Dharma. I was like, oh, okay, I'm not really sure what this means, but okay, fine. And then I was, in between my trips, I would stay upstate New York at the Omega Institute before I would go back out. And the first time I was staying at the Omega Institute, I was at this dinner table. I was talking to a group of people about forgiveness and how to deal, with partners, and what does it mean to be in partnership, what does it mean to be in community, and healing really, and what's worked for me and not. And then this one girl said, "You should really teach. I think your approach is very relatable." So I was like, okay, fine, I'll put a class together. So I put a class together, and 30 people came from the staff. It was called the Happiness Equation. So I was looking at happiness through a physiological, psychological, and spiritual perspective. And all these statistics, all this what happens chemically when you're breathing, what happens chemically when you're meditating, what happens chemically when you're visualizing your dreams in your mind's eye, what happens when you hug, what happens when you eat, giving people the tools to understand that what these mystics have been talking about for thousands of years are rooted in scientific evidence. We're just coming around to find out more and more now. I mean, no wonder why mindfulness is thrown around every 5 minutes. And there's a group of people who have been, you know, hammering at it, going at it to really merge these worlds, you know. And then I taught that class, and the class was great. And then they invited me to come back another year to teach it as a longer program for the staff. So I came, and it was a 6-week long class that we meet every Saturday for 3 hours. And then after that, I came to New York, and I had a couple workshops lined up. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do these workshops, and I'm gonna move to Los Angeles. I want to live in Venice Beach. I feel like I need to be in nature and be around, you know, those people because they're definitely more conscious because they live by nature. I didn't realize that some people in LA, the people that I was connected to, were approaching their healing in a completely different way that I felt comfortable with, that I felt, you know, that I felt the discipline that I talk about so much, you know. So I was like, I need to go back to New York because I feel like people in New York are smart, they're fierce, they're fabulous, they are disciplined about their healing, and they really know what the fuck they want to do. Mm-hmm. So that's when I came to New York. So
speaking of fabulous,
yeah.
When in this equation did you realize it's important for you to have online presence? And how did you start really figuring out the balance between connected to this lineage of spiritual teachers and teaching and way, and sharing that in this online social media world, you know?
Got it. Great question. When I was experiencing deep waves of depression, I would post about my process and I would write about it. It was my way of keeping myself accountable every single day. And I still up until today. You see, everything I put out there is exactly what I'm experiencing, is exactly the waves that I'm getting through it. And the more real you are, the more raw and honest you are, the more you're going to touch people's hearts, and the more you're going to build a community and a following around your voice. So it was from the very beginning, you know, I would always keep myself accountable. You know, I would speak about forgiveness, I would speak about journaling, I would speak about meditation, I would speak about all the ways to keep myself accountable, because I was like, if I put it out there, that means I gotta be fucking doing that shit too, you know? And the more I lived what I spoke about, the more it became a thing.
So what role do you think having that online presence and really sharing yourself so vulnerably has played in you establishing yourself as one of, you know, the most known meditation teachers and transformational teachers in New York?
I think huge. I think it's still my accountability program, you know? I think it's another way for me to express myself, you know, because I do have a journaling practice, but I journal on my notes, and then I turn the notes into Instagram posts. I think a really powerful way to stay accountable is to post about it, is to share vulnerably. How great is it that we can connect with people in Switzerland, in Brazil, in Africa, in Asia, with every time we post through a hashtag, you know, hashtag healing. I put it on my post, and then it's people across the world saying, hey, thank you for that note. And then I'm searching around that hashtag healing, and I'm getting people around the world. It really shows us that we have this Newtonian body that separates you and I, that I know where I end and I know where you begin, but it shows the quality of the mind, which is quantum, that there's no separation. You know, the internet really shows us that we are just totally interconnected, that there's really no separation. So social media is that proof that we have access to this cosmic wisdom that we just have to type on Google, what's up, or Instagram, what we're looking for, and there it is, you know? And we become portals of awakening for each other. We become ways to discover these ancient, mystical, and for a long time, secret practices, you know? And my whole game is anything that I learn, me having had the blessing of going to India, studying with these teachers, going to Nepal, Thailand, Indonesia, doing this whole program, and studying with these masters, and then being able to share freely and openly, you know. I think a huge thing to go back to the social media aspect is gift your audience something for free every day. Gift them something, you know, a little teaching or a little piece of your heart. That's a way for them to feel like they're worthy, that they matter, that you matter. There's a way for you to create this, you know, heart-centered connection.
I totally agree with you, and I love the way you put it. And also, you know, I think not everyone has the chance to go and spend a year in an ashram or go on a pilgrimage to India or study Qigong and all these things, but all of us are teachers and all of us are going through something and we have something to share. So whether you are actually a teacher and that's your career, or you're just someone who is looking to be more self-expressed and connected to yourself and your path and your journey, I think social media is such an incredible place to do that.
I agree.
Whether you're doing it very explicitly or you have to be a little more reserved because of who your community and your followers are. You know, we all know those situations when there's family and you want to make sure that there's boundaries, you don't want to reveal some things, but that's the thing, you know, there's always...
I'm writing something so open about my dad right now that I'm like, Mom, don't show him.
Yeah.
Sorry to pause you there, but yeah.
Special vulnerability. And I think on some days we feel like that, and on other days we feel a little more like we should take it in. And I think what's also very interesting is that boundary between being with yourself and also sharing yourself. Like for me, when I'm going through my internal process and experiencing, you know, deep waves of opening and realizations, I just need to step back and take a moment in a couple of days, maybe a week, to be with myself. And I can't share from that place. I just need to sit with it. So for me, it's always an interesting balance of, should I have someone take over my account and be posting then so that, you know, the account stays alive and my community's getting some value every day? Because I definitely don't want to be posting when I'm not in that flow of sharing and realizations and having something profound to say.
I agree 100%. And I think as I started to build a platform, I felt this constant need to always be putting something out there. But you notice the response, it's clear. The response is low, you know, and then I would go a week without posting. I would post something that was like straight up a realization, an aha moment, a moment of insight, and then it would be, oh, here we are. We all are riding that wave, you know, we're all in that space. We all can learn from this. So completely agree with you. I think having a healthy relationship with what to share and when to share is super important.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, when someone's asking me, how do I create a big community? Yeah, I can give you tools and tips, how many times a day to post and what time. But really, that's all great and that may amplify, like knowing SEO really well and writing good titles. But really the most important thing to be there is that having really something profound to share. So we're totally on the same page with that. A couple of really fun questions that I'm just dying to ask you.
Yes.
What was your first screen name that you can remember?
Oh my god. Funny one. I mean, for like the dating apps, I feel like I would say like Brazilian boy, you know.
Now you guys know where the accent is from.
And yeah, but I don't remember. I remember the AOL chats. I remember that was my first place that I could be speaking to an entire community of people who are all interested in LGBTQ conversations. It was the first time, and I was in Brazil talking to people from all over Brazil because it was very driven. You could pick a place where you were, and I would sit on a computer. It was a computer that was the only computer we had in the house, outside of my dad's like massive laptop that would be like a suitcase they would carry it. I would sit in the living room and I would be very like, hi, you know.
They didn't know you were gay.
No. And that's a big part of my healing, is coming out and expressing myself openly. And, you know, to everyone listening to this out there, whoever has told you that you're not worthy because of your sexual choice, that you're not worthy, or that you're broken because of your skin color, guess what? Fuck them. Because you are a divine messenger to this world. If you're triggering somebody because of your sexual choice, that means that they have something to work in themselves, that you are a divine, beautiful, healing angel to this world. And don't let anyone else tell you any different, because you're a fundamental piece.
I love that.
Yeah.
So one more thing to wrap this up is...
Let's keep going, I'll be late.
Okay, so what do you miss the most about growing up without social media?
That's a really good question. I think more time outside, but you know what? It's funny because I feel like I have a healthy relationship with social media now. That it's, you know, I will post, I will scroll, I will see, but it's not a driving force in my life, you know, of like fear of missing out, how I have to work with clients on that. They are constantly, you know, when they're competing and comparing narratives that show up in social media and how to handle that. I mean, honestly, I love social media. I love being good. I love knowing what my friends are doing in Bali. I love that. You know, being able to pick up my phone and I see that one of them is like, has created a new earring or has put out a new talk and is writing a new book or made a new, you know, whatever. And I can just pick up my phone and go on WhatsApp and send him a voice note and be like, wow, I love you, congrats, it's fabulous. I love being connected to the whole world all the time. You know, but I also love my silence.
I think that's really the most important point of Woke and Wired, and why I want to have these conversations is because ultimately online is giving us this possibility and opportunity to really connect with people, to expand, to co-create, to learn more, to have realizations, and that's the way you see it. And because of that's the framework that you see it through, that's what you get back. What you get back is opportunities and expansion and community. And you know, that's an important thing to remember. We get exactly what we envision, what we ask for, and what we put into the world through our words.
Exactly.
So by just saying that, you're just creating more of that in your life. And I think it's important for us all to be conscious about what we say, not just about social media, but our relationship with ourselves, about other people, and just really keeping our language pure, because our word creates our world. Yep.
I agree 100%. I hope. Double that. It's so true. And you know, a simple and powerful exercise to create more abundance in your life is to just simply, you know, close your eyes and ask yourself, what does abundance mean to you? You know, what does abundance mean to you? And allow those answers to arise. Allow those answers to come up to the mind's eye and get really clear what they are, you know, and see that a lot of your ways that you've thought about abundance perhaps are rooted because of someone else's Instagram feed, perhaps are rooted because of someone else's Facebook post, or perhaps are rooted in your mom's story or your dad's story or your grandfather's fears, you know? So create your own narrative of abundance and figure out what is abundance to you. Get really specific, you know, is it a healthy body, clear mind? Is it friends, lovers, a beautiful home, an adventure? Is it sailing through the Indian Ocean? I don't know. I don't know if that's even a thing, but you know what I mean? You know, like get really clear about what abundance means to you, and share from that place, you know, share abundance, because we have the opportunity to manifest abundance in everything we do.
And I think it's totally fine to use other people's examples and lives, or even our parents, you know, to sort of like nitpick and really sit with it and create our own vision through those tidbits. But like you said, I think it's very important to just tune back into yourself and ask yourself, do I want this because this makes me lit, or do I want this because I think I want this, because I've seen this there and there?
Exactly.
Leading up to a big question,
yes,
you have something exciting coming up. So question is, what are you feeling woke about right now?
Great question, thank you. I'm feeling woke right now about my book coming out.
Yes.
It's the Little Book of Daily Meditations, an instant moment to get clarity, wisdom, and balance. And comes out August 7th, so look out for the pre-sale dates. It's 365 meditations and intentions and mantras to get you to, you know, connect to yourself more deeply and live from the heart. And also this week I started working on a second book, which is getting me so woke about, you know, so lit about that too. And I think what's also getting me so, you know, expansion, and that's when I think about woke, it's this like expansion of internal landscape, of my internal landscape in my heart, is feeling like I belong, you know, like I belong in this path that I'm in, like like I belong in this way of operating from a place of joy and abundance, you know, because there was so much suffering and shame and fear around me growing up that I thought that was like how I would have to operate. And I like to be a beacon of light when I'm around people. I love to see people laughing and, you know, remembering that they have the skill set within them to live out their dreams, that their voices matter, that everything we dream of is possible. And I notice being in community how we get reminded that we are that we can operate from this abundance, joyful state of being.
Community. That's really what it leads back to. You know, we started by talking about transformation, what you do for people, how you hold them accountable. I think ultimately we can only go that far on our own, and that's why it's extremely important to surround ourselves with like-minded people and communities and teachers and mentors that are going to hold us to account and hold space for us to move through places that are dark and light. And I am so grateful that we're having this conversation.
Thank you so much, my love, for having me, and it's truly an honor and a joy to be in your space, to be here talking to you, and thank you for all the work you do. Continue to inspire from a place of love and kindness and fierce and fabulous. So thank you.
I love that.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much.
If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends, leave a review, and find all the show notes on wokeandwired.com and connect with me on Instagram @wokeandwired. Stay woke, stay wired, and have an incredible day.